Giving thanks for that breath as it moves through our body, reinvigorating, restoring, and healing us. The knowing of our own wholeness can be as simple as pausing and taking a deep, conscious breath. Inviting ourselves to be fully present in this moment, in this place, with ourselves and with one another. Healing can be as simple as being present to yourself and present to those around you. Awakening can be as simple as being present with yourself and knowing the one presence within. It can be as simple as pausing and allowing ourselves to feel the magnificent presence that lives within us and expresses through us and expresses as us. I invite you to listen to these words before we move into a few minutes of silence. It is said that God so loved the world that God sent the one and only begotten sons and daughters. This not only applies to the life of Jesus, also applies to your life and my life. Imagine if you took it on yourself to reorient your thinking towards your divinity. Imagine that you so loved the world and that you so love the world that you are giving the all of yourself into the world. Imagine your birth as an act of pouring yourself forth into life as a loving presence. Imagine that you so love the world that you have taken on physical birth to pour your divinity, to pour the presence of love through you into the world. Imagine. Imagine that God so loved the world that God sent you to be a presence of love in this time of awakening. Imagine that you so love the world that you pour the fullness of who you are into the world as love, as peace, as wisdom, as courage. Imagine that the angels were singing the day you were born, and they are still singing. Imagine. Imagine how wholeness is unfolding in the world as we human beings remember this one by one by one by one. And we bless ourselves in the moments when we forget that we have come to be love in the world. And we bless all others when they forget. Knowing our own wholeness right now in this moment, we also see the wholeness of all humankind, all those we're holding in our hearts, all those near and far, friends and family, siblings, parents and grandparents, those still living in physical, those living in non-physical, blessing our children, our grandchildren, the children in our communities, the children of the world, seeing the wholeness of all world leaders and community leaders, seeing the wholeness of all those who are carrying guns and those who are laying down guns, seeing the wholeness of all people protesting in the streets and those who are in their communities in prayer, visioning for peace in the hearts of humankind. We give thanks for all of the evidence of awakening that we see in the world, and all of the evidence of awakening and peace in our own hearts. We give thanks. And we say, so it is. And so we let it be. Namaste. Wow, we multiplied. When I sat down earlier, there were 3 of you. I love the way that happens. Just look around the room right now at these beautiful faces to note how God has shown up for you today. And within this community, someone will speak words to you that help to heal and restore you physically, emotionally, spiritually. There are people here who may touch your shoulder or give you a hug and bring forth within you some sense of courage that you need for an event, a decision, a circumstance. There may be someone here who is the presence of healing and renewal, of peace, of belonging, someone who will say the words to you or look into your eyes and help you to feel welcome, help you to feel the peace of community. Someone said to me earlier, what a gift to come and sit here in this sanctuary and feel peace. So this is the kind of community that you have affiliated with, become a part of, and helping to create this presence. It is no small thing. As a matter of fact, it is the very thing that's healing our world. Are the lights turned all the way up?
Your glasses on?
So is the opposite. So I'd like to bit more out of the book that I was reading from during our meditation. And this is a book entitled Resurrecting Jesus. But wait, there's more. Embodying the spirit of a revolutionary mystic. Ooh, that's what I want to be when I grow up. A revolutionary mystic. And he's saying that this is what the life of Jesus was about. Jesus was here to stir things up. As far as I can tell, things are still getting stirred up. This young man's name is Adyashanti. Well, he's 50-something now. And he knew as a boy that he was called to be a teacher of spiritual ideas. He was called to be a mystic. And at 19, he built a little hut in the backyard of his parents' home. And he stayed out there for months, meditating and fasting and listening. I am so grateful to parents like that who say, sure, you can build a hut in the backyard and sleep out there. It helped that it was California, you know. It helped that he didn't have to manage, I guess, snows and blizzards and ice storms. Well, what a great gift when the people around us, our communities, our families, our close beloveds, not only say yes, but they encourage us. I can just see his mother and father taking out sandwiches, you know, and soup and water and say, are you eating enough? No, I'm fasting, Mom. So we bless all the teachers, all the people, all the friends, all the family, anyone in our lives who have encouraged us to, metaphorically, be in our huts or be in our places of learning and listening. And you can kind of feel your love for them now, because we certainly don't wake up by ourselves. So Adyashanti says, what if we reorient our thinking to our own divinity? Because our thinking has been oriented mostly to the divinity of someone else. Our examples, our representatives of divinity. And certainly we were told in many ways that we were born in sin, that we're sinners, that we're not good enough, that was reserved for people like, let's name them, just name all those people. Jesus, Buddha, Mother Mary, Krishna, angels, the heavy hitters, the big guys. Let's take a deep breath. We are called to be big guys. It's right out of the scriptures. I'm not paraphrasing, it says it in there. We are called to be big guys. Jesus said, ye are gods. What does that mean? We are creators. We have creative energy and wisdom within us that we can see beyond the boxes, the beliefs, the ideas that keep us limited in our thinking, and we start exploring outside of the limited concepts and beliefs. And when we do that, we hit on something that the teachers have called mysticism. But here's what Adyashanti says. He says, when you reorient your life toward the realization of your own divinity, then you understand that you so loved the world. You had so much compassion. You had so much love that you poured yourself forth into life, and that pouring forth was your birth. You are here to redeem whatever you encounter in this life, to wake up within everything the deep reality of its divine existence. And that's just one little paragraph. So what if we reorient our thinking to knowing our own divinity, and we still celebrate Jesus, we still celebrate our teachers who bring to us the awakened consciousness. What we've been exempting for a long time is the celebration of ourselves, pouring ourselves into life to be a presence of love in the world. Anybody want to run from the building screaming yet? What happens when we reorient our lives towards our own divinity? we deepen into love for ourselves. And when we do that, we deepen into love for others, for our world, with no exceptions. Some of us, me included, still work on loving every little aspect of myself. I know you all have it figured out. So you can hold me in prayer. Don't you hit sometimes on a part of yourself, I think I'll just fold that up and put it back in the drawer and keep it there. No one will ever know. No, we have to open that drawer and pull that out and unfold it and love that too. And that's a part of what the mystic does. We'll talk about that more in a minute. So Charles Fillmore defines mysticism as the practice of the presence of God. Simple. Brother Lawrence's little book, The Practice of the Presence of God. Mysticism is intuitive knowledge and experience of God. Susan noted it earlier. We feel the presence. We experience the presence. We experience ourselves as divine. We experience ourselves as the presence of love in the world. There has to be the experience. And the mystic is one who has intimate, first-hand acquaintance with God. Now, in my perspective, that includes all of us. The only hitch is some of us are more conscious of it than others. Some of us have allowed it to seep up into our consciousness from the hidden places, from the places that we don't look too often. And it seeps up into our consciousness. And we have an aha moment. Oh, holy moly, I'm divine. Wow, I'm called to do what Jesus did and greater. We have those moments. Do we stay in them? Usually not. So that's where our spiritual practice comes in handy. We're going to have moments of forgetting. So the mystic makes a spiritual practice out of having first-hand experience and acquaintanceship and relationship with divine. And keeps working at it. How many of you have had to work at having healthy relationships in your life? Where did you have to do most of the work? Inside yourself. So the mystic, it's not about a one-time aha moment. We go to the mountain, we see the face of God, we come back down, we tell people about it. It's not just a one-time moment. And we're going to go ask Les to see how she's laughing. Okay, so Carl Jung, he said this. He said, it is to the mystics that we owe what is best in humanity. Only the mystic brings what is creative to religion itself. So every great religion has its mystics, has its mystical branch. Islam, what is the mystical branch? Sufism. How many of us love our Sufi dances, or now known as dances of universal peace? How many of us love Rumi? Yeah. He came out of the Islamic faith into the mysticism branch of Islam. It's called Sufism. The mystics, the poets, the artists, the musicians, the healers, all mystics. And they, according to Carl Jung, bring to us what is best in us. So it might be fun to explore the mystic within each one of us. Some of us are still deciding if we even can be or are mystics. So let's look at a little bit more. So Matthew Fox, who you know was a Catholic theologian, they called him the theologian's theologian. Great researcher of the religious writings of the world. In his perspective, right now, we are witnessing the dark night of our species. So how many of us feel that we have had at least one dark night of the soul? Okay, now here's the next most important part of that question. How many of you see that dark night as one of the doorways that open you up to deeper awareness? Now, keep your hands raised. You see the holy purpose of that which even takes us to our knees in dark night of the soul. Okay, so if we are in the dark night of our species, let us remember to take those deep breaths and know for our species that something profound is opening up within us as we as a species move through the dark night. Something profound cracking open. Something profound birthing, emerging, rising up through what feels hard, painful, confusing. What if we were able to more often say, thank you for this place where we can sit and feel peace even when the world around me is in the dark night. How profound is that? Because that comes from a consciousness that knows that we so love the world, we poured ourselves into life at such a moment as this. Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you repeat that?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's another way to say amen. Okay. Meister Eckhart, 11th, 12th century mystic. He said there would come a time when we would have among us mystic warriors. David loves Shaolin priests. He loves to read about Shaolin priests. Mystic warrior, carrying the spiritual energy forward, but also being a warrior of courage. Speaking truth as you know it. Being a presence of wisdom in the world. The mystic warrior. Meister Eckhart described the mystic warrior as a lover of God, doing inner work, healing the ghost of burdens past and future. So there's a lot of us here who talk about this idea that it's very significant to heal those ghosts, those burdens of the past. It's very essential for us to express our wholeness. But when we understand quantum physics, we know that we're also future healing. In this time zone we live in, the time zone of space-time dimension, it looks like past, present, future. But when I do my inner work and I heal the ghost of the burdens of the past, I'm already impacting what I know in this dimension as the future. It's another way to talk about what Jesus said. He said, ye are gods. We are the creative influence of what's unfolding before us. And if I'm doing that in myself, I'm also doing it for my generations, my community, my family, those close to me. I'm also doing it for my species. But we don't have to even look at that big perspective. Let's just talk about doing it for self, family, close community. And that's enough. Because the edges of your healing transformation is going to touch on the edges of mine, and then they're all one. And one affects the other. You see how that works? So everybody touch your heart, as Susan said, one more time. I have come to be loved in the world. If you believe that, say it out loud. I have come to be loved in the world. Woo! And then we have to ask, well, how does that look today? How does that look tomorrow? How does it look right this second when I have to make a decision about something hard going on? I have come to be loved in the world. I've come to be a mystic warrior. I've come to have intimate experience with the God presence. I am here to have first-hand knowledge of one presence. And I am here to express that in the world. A mystic warrior. So the journey of the mystic is the story of Jesus. the story of Jesus is the story of all of us. Who knew? It was placed in a form in holy writings so that our species would have the story in our collective consciousness. And if y'all get tired of hearing this, just tell me, but I'll keep saying it because we always have new people. And that is, it's okay if you see the story literally. It's okay if you see the story metaphorically. It's okay if you feel that everything as reported in the Bible happened just that way. And it's okay if you sense, if you sense that it's a story to awaken within us what's happening in the world and this idea of awakening of our species. It's okay. Either way, the story works. Amen. Thank you, Simon, very much. So the first Sunday of Advent, would someone come up here and help me light these candles, please? Somebody who was an altar boy, someone who has the training. Oh, good. Okay. So last Sunday we lit this first candle for faith, and some of you noticed this is a different Advent candle holder up here. We don't have the traditional Advent wreath because we decided to change it up a little bit and move from this to this. It's a beautiful symbol. So the first candle we lit for faith. So would you please light that candle for faith? That was the faith to not only hear the call, but to follow the call. You better blow that out. There's one more match for the next candle. And we remember that Mary from last week represents divine feminine, intuition, the nourisher. Joseph represents the wisdom, the protector. Jesus represents that consciousness that came to bear witness to truth. And now let's light that second candle. Let's see. For today, we are lighting this candle for guidance and the peace that we feel when we know that we have intact within us help from heaven and earth, within us, around us, to follow our call and to pay attention and hear our guidance. So, let's go back to this place for just a moment. Mary, that energy of divine feminine, of intuition, that energy of the nourishing presence, where is that? Within us. It's a part of the kingdom of heaven. That's within each one of us. And some of us are called to be literally mothers in the world or the nourishing presence in the world. That's the consciousness that Mary held. And Joseph, the wisdom, the protector, where is that? It's all within us. Joseph represented something that's within us. And Jesus came to bear witness to truth. That was the call that he answered. And where is that call, that same call? Within each of us. We came to bear witness to truth. And as we said last week, the truth doesn't change, but our understanding of the truth changes. So as someone asked me once, they were on their deathbed, Baptist minister, lifelong, and he looked up at me and he said, "Is any of it true?" Well, that wasn't a moment for my Sagittarian mind to kick in and say, well, exactly what do you mean? Can you explain that question to me? You know, this was someone who's going in and out, you know, moving into that transcendent place. So I didn't say, please explain to me what you mean. I simply said, everything that was about love is true. He took a deep, peaceful breath, died a few hours later. Knowing that arena and what he might have heard as a Southern Baptist minister, and in that moment of passing from his body, he might have had a few concerns. But when we're able to ask, what are the words for this moment? How do I respond to that question? Because that was my prayer. Oh God, what do I say? Bam! Everything that was about love is true. That's a darn good question, and it's a darn good answer. So this Judith Cuzzle, I got this from Church of Facebook a few days ago. She said the miracle is not to fly in the air, to walk on the water, but to walk on the earth and bring heaven to earth by living our highest soul purpose and calling. You know, I used to think back in my charismatic days, ooh, the miracles, the healings, that's really great stuff. Ooh, that's great stuff, and it is. Miracles and healings, wonders. Fabulous. Then I realized when we talk about doing all the things Jesus did in greater, the really hard stuff is forgiveness, is acceptance, is feeling oneness, is sensing that all of us are the precious beloved and no one's exempt from that. That was the hard stuff. Doing the inner work, that's, you know, walking on water. That sounds easier than some of the inner work we have to do. So guidance. When we have the call, and as we said last week, the call can come in a very subtle, sweet, tender way. It can come through a lovely dream. We wake up and go, wow, that was wonderful. That feels like a call. It can be a call to take a casserole to your neighbor, or it can be a call to go to Malawi and do service work with communities who need more support. It can be a call that comes like a bolt of lightning. It can be a call that comes at the bedside of a beloved who's passing. It can be a call that comes when relationships end, careers end, life shifts and changes, and we hear a call in the midst of a dark night moment. It can be a call that comes through the words of somebody else, or a text at 4:30 in the morning. Or it can be a vision, a day vision or a night vision. It can come in so many ways, but the point is, the candle we lit today is to follow the guidance that comes to us from heaven and earth, from the unseen and the seen. And it's a really good time to remind ourselves to pay attention, because the help from heaven and earth is around us every single second. I used to have friends, you know, I called them the New Age woo-woo people, and they were constantly looking for signs. They were constantly seeing signs of one presence in their lives. And I used to think in my psychological training, and I would just listen. But you see, Spirit got a hold of me and let me know in my own life and for others, we are constantly being guided, and it's not my job to determine if your guidance makes sense. My job is to pay attention to my guidance. But now I know, now I get it. To all my friends way back when, I apologize, I get it. We are surrounded by constant heavenly support and earthly support. Jeannie had the story about the owl that's been visiting with her. Support comes to us in so many ways. Pay attention, especially when we know ourselves as mystics. So the angels came, the messengers from on high. And angels, according to Charles Fillmore, who wrote the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, he did that in a couple of weekends. No. I mean, here it is, y'all. It's like the metaphysical. This is the big book for unity. And he wrote a lot of things down in here about the metaphysical meaning of the different parts of this story. And he he said angels are our spiritual perceptive faculties which ever dwell in the presence of the Father, meaning we have these spiritual faculties that are within the realm of divine ideas in one presence. And we constantly have access to that realm. We constantly have access to these perceptive faculties. Now and then I have a mantra that goes something like this: I don't know what to do. More these days, I put the spin on that of, I'm currently in the time of not knowing. And that is a powerful place to be because I'm listening, I'm watching, I'm paying close attention. I don't know right now, but I'm open to knowing. So it's not as frustrating for me as it used to be to not know. Well, what's the next step? Well, what's the next decision? Well, what's going to happen next? Give me a menu. Give me an outline. But now I'm more comfortable, aren't you, with not knowing? It's a very powerful place to be. So here's what Fillmore said about angels. He continues to write about angels. And he says, the angels are the thoughts that understand spiritual principles. The work of the angels is to guard and guide and direct the natural forces of mind and body, which have in them the future of the whole man. I'm going to read that again. The work of the angels is to guard and guide and direct the natural forces, that which is already within us, the natural forces of mind and body, which have in them the future of all of humankind. Ooh, let's think about that a minute. What if it's true that you so love the world that you poured yourself into the world as love? And what if, we've talked about this before, what if encoded within us is everything we need and everything we require to be the expression of love in the world? What if that's so much a part of who we are that we simply give ourselves over to that which is already within us? What if? I'm just asking. So it might be true. It might be true that we have been enlightened, filled with light, filled with codes of light, to know what to do when we hit on this time that may be the dark night of the species. What if the one place that we're invited to go is the within? Prayer, silence, meditation, drumming, dancing. What takes us to the center? Yoga. What takes us to the center? Being with the family, the children. What is it that takes us to our center? Because that's where the codes wake up. The wise men symbolize the accumulated wisdom and experiences of your soul. You don't have to go and figure it all out all over again every time you take physical birth. Many of us feel that we've taken physical birth more than once. So do I have to go out and figure out everything I learned in all my previous lifetimes? Do I have to go and figure everything out again? No, that's the great stuff. It's encoded within us. If I learned compassion in my life 3 lifetimes ago, I can pull that compassion forward now. The star in the story symbolizes our inner conviction of our divine sonship and daughtership. When we get the call, what is it that we follow? We follow this inner conviction. We follow this inner energy and courage and stamina and boldness even. We follow that star. Years ago, in the charismatic movement, we studied a lot about the 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit. Anybody know what I'm talking about? The 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit, things like wisdom and healing and miracles and faith. And this woman came up to me after a service I was involved in, and she said, honey, I'm going to pray for you to have holy boldness. Holy boldness. Now, that's significant for somebody who's basically, at my core, is an introvert. It's helpful to have holy boldness. And I don't know how long she prayed for me, but by golly, something took. So we follow that conviction, that inner conviction of, geez, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to pour love into the world, but I trust, I have faith that there's going to be guidance and help from heaven and earth to do this thing I'm called to do. The story includes the sheep and the shepherds. What does sheep symbolize? The harmless, innocent, pure, guileless part of us. That tender, just imagine right now holding a baby lamb. That sweet, tender, precious. Don't have to be afraid of a sheep, not ordinarily. We don't have to be afraid. It's the pure and tender part of us, and it's in every one of us. And the shepherd, that energy is also within us. It's the protective essence, the watching over, taking tender care. And can you imagine in this story, the angels come and light up the sky and tell the shepherds, you got to go see this thing that's happening over here in Bethlehem. In our own inner essence, there's parts of us that say to us, you've got to pay attention to this. Go pay attention to what's happening. There's birthing of this Christic consciousness within you. Pay attention. Go pay attention to what's happening. And we're going to save this part for next week. So there's a preview of next week. Yeah, next week we're going to touch on Herod and Egypt. And the most fun, John the Baptist, the wild man in the Bible. But these are all part of us too. So I want to close with some thoughts that I've been jotting down of late about our fields of perception and how our fields of perception are changing right now. And when we know ourselves as divinity, we start paying attention in a different way, and our perception not only shifts, it expands. It seems to me that we are letting go of human knowledge, personal and collective, things we think we know. We're letting go of favorite concepts and beliefs. Even those that seem good, we're letting go of those because there's something better and best and beyond. It seems to me that we are clearly in our steps towards awakening, and in fact there's so much evidence of awakening that that's what I want to pay more attention to now. The evidence of awakening. It seems to me that without my spiritual practice or without my connection, my conscious connection with Spirit, it seems that I'm probably using 10% or less of the power of my mind. Because when I don't do my spiritual practice enough, that means my prayer, my meditation, my contemplation, my silence, my pondering of how Spirit is at work in me and the world. When I'm not doing that enough, I'm dividing, I'm compartmentalizing, I'm analyzing, I'm dissecting, I'm separating from God, from my true nature, and from the oneness with all of you in the world. It seems to me that I have to give my focus over to the divinity of who I am. If I don't do that, I separate. It seems to me that Spirit is operational software. It seems to me that that software helps me to know the brilliance of my own human nature. The software is within me. I have everything I need and everything I require to be guided towards and to express my full calling. It's all there. I don't have to read another book. When we remember the play that lifted our hearts as children, we will know the heart of God. Just close your eyes a moment. Think about as a child some moment of play, some moment of light-heartedness, some moment of feeling joy. Might have been running through a field, playing with the toys under the Christmas tree. It might have been playing with the puppies, kittens. Some moment of play. Let yourself feel that lightheartedness being lifted in that one moment. And that energy is still with you. Still with us. Let yourself connect with the lightheartedness of those kinds of moments. Children at play. Listening to the giggling of children, the glee, maybe jumping in a mud pool. So you got that feeling? Review that feeling often. And let it come to your consciousness more of those feelings. Because we need our lightheartedness to be in this time that we're living in. We need that lightheartedness. So I'm going to end. There's a story. My grandniece, Pam and I have a grandniece. She's wonderful. She's at FSU now in the opera program. She's stunningly wonderful. And as a child, she was a storyteller. And at age 4, she rendered the Jesus story that I think you'd like to hear because it's an important spiritual story. And in her 4-year-old mind, the story went like this. The angel came to Mary and said, "You're going to have a baby." And Mary said, "Whoa!" And Jesus was born, and then he shot off into the sky like a rocket. And her father, who's a Methodist minister, said, "I think we're going to have to work on that before we go home to visit my parents." So let's end with the real Jesus story. Just a thought to ponder. You might agree with it. The second coming of Christ. What if the second coming of Christ is the first fully conscious incarnation of the Eternal One into the collective consciousness of this world? I'll read that again. Something to ponder. What if the second coming of Christ is the first fully conscious incarnation of the Eternal One into the collective consciousness of our species? Let's focus on that. Look around. Turn to somebody and say, "Thank you for taking birth as love in the world."
Thank you for taking birth.
Listen to her.
Well, I'm speechless. Are you all speechless?